All right, why people don't want female space marines? I don't kn- I think I've never
Now,
played Warhammer,
40K
so I don't really know.
announces that they're releasing female custodies, and when you look at the comment section, you notice that overwhelmingly people are upset about
Green or
this.
gold pre-order orcs and adeptus customers codexes, battle boxes, and more to pick your side. I don't
You
know
have people that are showing their
where it
Warhammer
says.
collection worth even more than $10,000, and they are saying that, okay, well, with this move, you have convinced me not to purchase something from you. And then you have the other individuals that are absolutely shocked and bewildered by what people want to spend their money on. It's like, what do you mean you're not going to spend your money on this expensive hobby? Are you insane? You are incredibly ridiculous. Like, of course, it is your duty to give Games Workshop your money, regardless of what you think.
Right.
You are addicted. What are you talking about? So the question is, like, why is this happening? Like, why are so many people that are showing very expensive collections of Game Workshop, why are they saying, like, okay, enough, I will just choose another hobby, I will go and support diversity and buy stuff from the Japanese people, because you guys have completely lost the plot. Like, what your PR has sunk dramatically with this change. So, the first thing that you need to notice is how lazy the change is. Like, they're not even making anything related to the story. They don't even bother. They just say, well, there were always female custodies. Even though that contradicts their own lore, they're basically saying, like, there is no reason for you to get invested into our lore. Like, there is absolutely no reason why you should care, because we can change it.
I think if it involves lore and out of pure hate for wanting woman in a game like this, then it's fine, right? If there's lore and it's like the custodies or whatever they're called, the adaptas, whatever their name is, don't want or never had woman in their group, then obviously they're not going to add woman if it's lore accurate, right? If they're basing it off of something that was accurate back in the future, or I mean in the past, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I kind of want to go along the lines of women weren't allowed in the armies back then, so we're just gonna put that in, and that's just reality, right? Not necessarily that it's correct, but it's reality. And I think some games go for that. So when you attack a game that's like lore accurate with no woman in it, it kind of makes no sense.
Whatever we want, you know? Imagine if your mother was telling you a fairy tale when you were a kid, and it's like, the king had a daughter, and then she's like, so the son of the king, and you're like, wait, didn't you say that the king have a daughter? Well, it's a fairy tale, why does it matter? It can be either or, you know? Like, you do not get the level of immersion, and you do not actually get invested into the story if they're just going to change things willy-nilly.
Right.
So that is one of the reasons that people are upset, but I don't think it's the main reason. The main reason, however, in order to understand it, you actually need to look a little bit at the politics of the issue, because as the left likes to say, nothing exists in a vacuum. If this change was done 5 or 10 years ago, I don't think many people would have cared. But because this change is done now, in 2024, a lot of people are caring. And that is because many customers have noticed that there is a cancerous anti-consumer ideology that permeates in these companies. And you get to see these community managers, most of them who are sexist and racist and absolutely hate and despise their customers, going around and going like, oh my god, these white men, oh, white men everywhere, oh, I just can't stand it. And that's fine, you know, if you want to think like that. White men seem to be strong enough to take these insults, but I don't understand why we need to give you our money in order to do it. Like if you're part of this destructive ideology filled with hatred, why should we fuel your ideology with our cash? Like, at the end of the day, you are selling something for a hobby. You're not selling food, you're not selling an important resource, you're not providing any monumental contribution to society. You are just selling some toys. And why is it that the people you hate should fund your hobby? You know, in fact, I do believe that if you're on the opinion that you want Warhammer to be more diverse, then we can actually help you by diversifying your clientele as well. But
like I said before, though, if it's not a game that's supposed to be if it's not a game that's not supposed to have diversity in it, then the game shouldn't have to add diversity. Play the game, have fun, and then do what you want. You shouldn't have to attack the game developers or harass them for not adding females into a non-diverse game. For example, I'm not saying that it's not a diverse game, that Warhammer isn't a diverse game, because it says since the first of the 10,000 were created, there has always been female custodians. So obviously there has been, but for example, if there was never, and then they added them, people would get mad. But if they didn't, people would get mad. So it's like, it's an inevitable thing that's always going to happen, right? But it always depends on the game itself, right? So
purchasing stuff from the Japanese individuals, you will have less white customers, and thus your customers will be more diverse, and it will help you fulfill your vision. But let's talk about why this change is about hatred. There is this implication, and some of the activists will say it outright, that there is something inherently wrong with men having their own spaces. Like you shouldn't actually have your own stuff, which is very bizarre, right? So like, if you write a story where it's just about guys,
right,
then there is something wrong with the story. They will even say it's too white,
yeah,
too male.
Right.
And they don't really articulate as why that is a bad thing. They don't.
They just go to the point on why, or they don't even go to the point why. They just say, "There's no woman, it's bad. There's no woman, it's bad."
Go and say the reasoning behind it. They just state it, and they state it as if it's a problem.
Exactly.
And I do not agree with that. I do not think that it is a problem for men to have their own spaces, just like I don't think there is a problem for women to have
yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't think that is an issue with girls' nights out.
Like, I feel like it happens a lot towards the woman, because I feel like it's more obviously in society for a lot of men to leave out women on purpose because they're a woman, right? Because they're female. And I don't agree with that. I'm just stating it as facts. It happens all the time, right? And game companies do that. Not badly, but because sometimes they focus more on history and not just what they believe. But women seem to attack men for when men leave out women because they always think it's something with them being a woman, which sometimes it is, but I feel like most times for big developers and games it isn't. It isn't the case, right? So then I don't really, but if a woman made a book all about women, I feel like less men would attack the book for leaving men out, right? Because we understand, oh, this happens more towards women than it happens to men, so why would I attack the woman for making an all woman book when they you know what I mean, when that rarely happens for them. When maybe it doesn't, but I feel like there's a more men populated games and books than women, right? So then people can take everything out of context, and I'm not expressing what is right and what is wrong here. I'm only expressing what is factual in different words and what I see it through my eyes. I don't think anything is right or wrong. I'm just expressing what I think and what I believe is to be true through my own eyes.
If the girls want to go out by themselves without having a single guy, that is because it creates a different environment than if a guy is there. And it's the same thing when you have male-only spaces. It creates a different environment than when women are there.
Right.
And if these are things that we're talking about, hobbies and how people like to spend their private time. And I don't think that people should always be forced to be in inclusive spaces. I think that is perfectly fine if you sometimes have like spaces that are, adults only, like the table for the adults and the table for the kids, or
right,
the girls' night out and the boys going out clubbing, like that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine, right? I think that same genders can relate with each other, and I think that's the only way they can relate with each other, right? So
because again, like, it creates different
but when
dynamics,
it creates different dynamics and it makes it diverse, or not diverse, but you're able to relate with each other. But as soon as the other gender of that one gender that's grouped together starts attacking the other gender, or the other gender starts attacking that one gender that's all grouped together, that's when it becomes a problem. And they're like, why did you leave out men? Why'd you leave out women? Right? That's when it becomes a problem. Either it's justified or not, that's when it will always become a problem, right? But I think sometimes we have to take a step back, look at the history, look at why it's based off of, and why it was there, or why it's all men, or why it's all women, right? And so I think people are attacking Warhammer, right, for not knowing the history of maybe it. Don't quote me on this, but maybe it's history of one of these groups, like custodians, being all men, right? And then women will take that, or men, and then be like, what's going on here? Like, why is there no woman? But they wouldn't look at the back, you know what I mean? They just look at the front page and not the insides. They just look at they judge a book by its cover, you know what I mean? Use the same logic.
But even then, I don't even understand why it needs to be justified. Like, human beings have the freedom of association. So simply by choosing to associate in your free time, in your hobbies, with whomever you want, that should be up to the customer and not up for the company to. There is something morally wrong or morally repugnant by that implication. So basically, you know, as long as it's not about employment or getting a job or anything like that, I do believe that people do have a right to associate however they want. I mean, look, if I want to associate with 10 other guys and we want to be toxic as fuck, like we like trash talking, banter, we like insulting each other, getting another person that's very sensitive and it's like, oh my god, how can you call me retarded? It completely ruins the environment. It completely ruins the conversation. Like, maybe I just want to play and use gamer words. I want to use slurs in a safe environment where no one besides consenting adults get to hear it.
Right.
But here you have the company that's going to educate me and is going to say, no, you're not allowed. Like, you need to behave as if your mother is there in every single interaction, right? Okay. So, like, this is one of the reasons. It is the implication that having a male-only space is evil and it needs to be destroyed. It needs to be deconstructed. And, you know, if that's your belief, that's fine, but you haven't convinced the audience. And the other reason is that the people pushing for this are incredibly toxic. Like some of the worst individuals that the internet has to offer. Besides the fact that you have BlackRock and Vanguard, you know, like the 1%, the richest amongst humanity, the ones hoarding all the resources, are supporting this. Which usually, you know, when I'm on the side of BlackRock and Vanguard, I'm a little bit too left for that. You know, I'm not that of a right wing to start sipping for the bankers. But I'm just saying, if the bankers are pushing for something, maybe it's not in my best interests. Okay. All jokes aside, though, I do want to point out that the actual social justice activists who have been pushing for this change for years now are some of the worst toxic individuals on earth. Yeah. There are open letters in the comment section here.
I think it's also of course it's with the community as well, right? I think people can take it out of context, or not take it out of context, but take it out of proportion, especially on who the person is. You know, people take things all types of different ways, but when you come after something else and you're that type of person that is very sensitive towards those types of things, I think you should just not say anything at all. Because if you know you're going to take it out of proportion, then you know you're going to take it out of proportion, and then other people might take it out of proportion and say something different. I think that you should always be calm on what your beliefs are, because that's always going to end up as the best way as it can get, right? Never, don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's just how it is, and it's just reality. I think most of the times, you know, sometimes you can't say that, sometimes you can say that, and I think most of the times you can't say that, right? I think that pushing a belief onto someone, or not a belief, but pushing something so hard onto someone, sometimes can change the moods of other people, can change the story, you know what I mean? So it's just like the types of things that whoever says it is also a big factor into the overall topic.
Showing the abuse that they're getting from these white men that are social justice activists simply because they disagree. So you have like a black person or a black woman that's like, no, I like Warhammer the way it is, and they use slurs, they use harassment, they try to dox, they do life ruination simply because she disagrees. So you have an ideology by these people who believe themselves to be the champions of minorities, who believe themselves to be the champions of the oppressed. And when you have the alleged minorities or people that are oppressed saying, well, actually, you know, you're wrong, I don't agree with your ideology, they attack those people. So what that goes to say, is it actually about helping minorities and oppressed individuals? Or is it just like for the bourgeois white individuals to feel good about themselves? And they don't like it when someone that they champion, when they represent, is coming up and saying, no, you actually don't represent me. They get rid of that person. They make absolutely sure they make that person feel unwelcome, because again, they're so arrogant in their ways that they believe they hold the ultimate truth. And it's this behavior that is incredibly toxic. I don't want to play with these people, and definitely I do not want to know that the company that I give money to is catering to these individuals. Like, if you want to cater to this level of toxicity, and if this is your new audience that you prefer on top of the majority, then fine, you know, you can keep that audience, but the majority is not going to stick around. Personally, I do not know how much is going to influence the sales of the company, nor do I know if they care about the sales, because, again, the shareholders, BlackRock and Vanguard, are very ideologically driven lately. So most of their decisions, especially when it comes to hobbies, is less about money, but more about instilling behaviors into people. The CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, said so in an interview, that he wants to instill behaviors into people. And I don't want behaviors to be instilled into me, which is why I'm going to go to the Japanese, where Larry Fink doesn't have as much power, and the Japanese just want to instill entertainment rather than behaviors.
Okay.
But still, when it comes to Warhammer, it's still a niche hobby. Like, it's not mainstream. So if the people that are actually buying like thousands of dollars worth of figurines, and they're buying stuff for their kids, you know, especially now that the new generation is growing up, so the way that they are going to learn about Warhammer in the age of
so these are figurines.
Media is probably more from their parents, and like, for instance, Sargon of Akkad is teaching his kid about the game. If those people are actually going to choose not to buy this because of the way they're treating their customers, then we may notice a little bit of financial damage. Still, I don't think this is enough.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think that's enough either. I think people that like the game will like the game and will always buy what comes from the game if they really want to. I don't think that really affects anything.
On this path for a little longer, it may be antagonistic. If you have like some community manager give some shit to the customers or to streamers that people like, then I do think that they're going to notice more loss of sales.
Okay.
So far, only 200,000 people have seen this, and the replies have been overwhelmingly negative. So yeah, like, most people do not appreciate that this is happening. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't think I mean, I don't really have a positive negative for this. It's not really something I can speak on about something I agree or disagree. Just speaking through what I believe in my own eyes and what's factual with both males and females and what they believe of each other in only gender groups and stuff. But I mean, if there was a game out there and it was about a black group in the 1940s and it was an army, right? I think a lot of people might, a black male only, or a black female male only group, and it was about war and everything. I think some people might go after the game for not allowing whites in it and stuff, and white males and females or other races into it without actually looking on why it's only black. You know what I mean? But I think that's it. Maybe a different logic. Because, I mean, obviously, if you've seen an only black group, you might know there's something up about why it's only black, and then there's other mixed races in it. So I think that was a bad example, but I think you can apply the same logic to this game, and other shit as well. But hey, that's my view within my own eyes. It's not what I believe. It's just I don't really know enough about the game yet. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. See ya.